Peace. My name is Tony Perkins, and welcome to the Live, Learn, and Grow podcast. The 3 pillars we do to enhance our quality of life. Live, striving to make today better than yesterday. Learning, something we do every single day once we acknowledge the lesson. Grow, simply building off the lesson learned. Stay tuned. It's going to be epic.
Jersey City made me who I am today.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy, make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it, I wanna see how.
My name is Louis Spears. I am an educator and community leader, and I will be the next mayor of Jersey City.
What's going on? What's going on? Live, learn, and grow. Got my brother here, Louis Spears.
What's going on, sir?
Welcome, brother, man.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you
a
for
long
having me.
time, man.
Yes, sir.
Been trying to catch up with this guy. This guy is like the mayor. He's hard to catch up to. You know? What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
Good.
Enjoying this process right now. But yeah, definitely doing very well.
That's good, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy to have you here, man. It's a pleasure, man. I think we was talking a little while ago, man, and you shared how long your days are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, what is that like, man?
Oh man, waking up, I have the kids, getting them ready for camp, school, and all that. But then right after they are out of the door, man, my meetings start. I have, my work. I have my work,
Right.
and then once I'm off of work, 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock usually. Just meetings, events, just connected with the community, and it's a lot of fun though. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that's the key that you mentioned that, because if it's not fun, it's no need to do it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And the other thing is, my life has always been this way.
Right,
It's just I redirected the focus.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Always got to do that.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So let's just jump right into it, man. Let's just take it back a little bit, man. You attended 14 school.
Yep.
And Ferris High School,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir. How'd you know that?
Come on, man. This is what I do, man.
All right.
This is what I do, But what was that like, man? Because I know you, when you grew up in Booker T, and you went to 14.
Yeah. So it was so much happening at that point, right? So growing up in Booker T, I ended up going to PS22.
Okay.
Then we moved to Grant.
Okay.
Grant, we had a fire
Right.
when I was about 8, 9. And I went to 29 at that time. Then we moved back to Booker T, went back to 22. Then we moved to Boswick, went to 41. Then we moved to Harmon, and then I went to 14. And we moved to White, and I stayed at 14. I got special permission, and then I went to Ferris High School. And so we moved around a lot because of a lot of social programs, right? So let's say, for instance, we were in Section 8, right? And let's say, for instance, someone complained about the living conditions. Instead of folks fixing it, they decided that they weren't, and so we had to move, right? And so that's why, like affordability and being able to stay in Jersey City is so important to me, right? Because ultimately, without the social programs, I wouldn't have been able to go to Harvard. I wouldn't be a teacher. I wouldn't be an educator. I wouldn't be a community leader, because because my mom didn't have to focus on the how to pay for this or how to pay for that. Okay. She was able to give more time to us. Right, and really develop us and build skills that we wouldn't have had otherwise. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Let me just ask this: as a youth, though, as a kid, during that whole process, you jumping around from school to school, because I know me coming up, And still today, you know, when you're the new student coming into the class, all eyes on you. You know, everybody's doing their work, and then teachers like, oh, everybody get up, we have a new student. You know, we want to welcome our new student. So what was that like? You know, being that you jumped around and you went to like 3 or 4 different schools. What was that like?
It was like 51st states,
Right.
every other year, right?
Yeah.
So one part, I learned how to connect with people. Right, so you know, going from 22 to 41, I'm into 29 to 41 to 14. I had to really like learn the land of the land real fast,
Yes.
right? To know who the bullies were, who the cool people were, right? Who were the nerds, you know, that type of thing. Survey the land, but throughout that process, I was able to learn how to get along with folks. Right, how to walk into a spot where, you know, I'm the underdog, right? But then in each setting, right, each school setting, I made a lot of friends, a lot of connections. I was always like the teacher's pet. I always got like awarded like the best awards in school, right? Because I learned how to manage those environments.
You didn't bring that apple to school, did you?
I'm actually allergic to apples, though, by the way.
Okay.
But in terms of the teachers, I never bought the apple, but I was definitely a teacher's pet, definitely.
Okay.
Right? I would ask them, like, how was your day, right? Like, how are you doing? If there was papers that needed to be handed out, I would volunteer, right? I always was that guy who, like, manage spaces. I don't know how to describe that, but that was just an innate thing for me.
So just hearing all of that, so obviously you sat in the front.
All the time. All the time, yeah.
Wow.
All the time, yeah.
Wow.
One, because I was shorter than most of the kids, right? So it was difficult to look over their shoulders.
Right.
But, you know, I always wanted to know what was the latest and the greatest. What was the next best thing, right? Like following the lesson plans. I always wanted to do well. I wanted to please my teachers, right? So getting A's was a way of living for me. Right, almost neurotically, where if I didn't get it, I felt bad about myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm starting to see that in my son now, who's 4 years old, and I'm hoping to break that out of him soon. You know what I mean? I appreciate the spirit of excellence, but not to the point where it's like crippling, right? Or you know, yeah. And so these are the things that, you know, we see in our offspring, and we're like, wow, that was me, or you know, and it resonates with you, right? And so like, you know. And my mom would always say, man, it's not that serious. It's just not that serious. You got to be okay, right? But in my head, I'm like, I want an A.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
that's dope. That's dope because you didn't get a lot of students like that. You know, especially everybody was trying to be cool. You know what I mean? And all the cool guys would try to go to the back of the classroom. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But the thing about it is, you know, not even like to stereotype those people, you know, because those guys who chose to sat in the back were the ones that weren't expected to be be you know,
in some cases,
right?
In some cases, in other cases, right? They just wanted to be comfortable with their friends, right? And it was just cool to do that. But I knew a lot of cool dudes, particularly at 14, were brilliant. Like these guys probably outscored me on any EWT, you know, any standard I set, right? And so like I think they get a bad rap even today, right? Where you look at a cool guy in an urban community, we think of, you know, all of negative things, but we don't even understand that this guy is probably one of the smartest guys on the block. You know what I mean? But maybe doesn't have like a healthy home life or something like that, right? And so like there are instances where, you know, the cool guy who doesn't get good grades are in the back. He's in the back because he just doesn't want to be seen. But a lot of times, and I've witnessed this in many of my settings, you know, they go to the back and they got it. They just don't need to be up in the front.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So from there, you know, you went to Ferris High School, then you went on to Rutgers?
Rutgers University.
Okay.
How'd you know that? Yeah, all right. Yes, sir. Rutgers University, New Brunswick, Livingston College. Whoop, whoop. Now they all are combined or whatever. Rutgers University, then NJCU. And then Harvard.
You got your master's at
I have my
NJCU,
first master's in urban ed.
Okay.
From NJCU and then Harvard.
Harvard.
Yeah.
Leadership.
School
Master's in
leadership. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nice. Kismet of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Speak on that.
So
That's huge. I never even really knew what that was.
right.
Early. Because I met you.
Yeah, you knew
before
me for
all
a
of this
while.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now just to see all of these great things that you've done and that you're doing is amazing, man.
Thank you, man.
So just speak on that Kismet of Kings. Man. What is that about?
So Kismet came out of was birthed out of this idea that young men of color particularly needed something different that I couldn't provide as a teacher in the classroom. You know what I mean? And so when I thought about like Kismet of Kings, first of all, the name is an alliteration, KK, right? Kismet means fate or destiny. It is derived from Egypt. And I wanted it to be very clear that these young folks particularly young men, are destined for greatness, right? And I wanted to make sure that it was clear that we were going to find a different way to really affect a change in their lives. So as a teacher, so personally, right, in my everyday life, my cousin was murdered, right? In Booker T Projects, the project that we were raised in, right? In 2009. And so he was the one who went to school with me. I would bring him up to the college campus, and he would go to class for me, take notes for me, bring it back, and I was grooming him, right? And then he was murdered, and it's just like, damn, like my dreams are gone, essentially, right? And I remember like bawling at the funeral, and this woman came to me and was like, and I said, I wanted to start my program, and they were like, she said, it's never too late. And that just resonated with me, you know what I mean? And so I went into like a slight depression, right? Because as a teacher, I realized that like I wasn't doing what I should have done by the kids. At least that's what I was thinking, right? Even though I was staying up late, I was working hard, but I was working wrong in many ways, right? And so I was like, listen, with my best of efforts, I'm not doing what I need to do for most of my kids, right? And particularly my young men. So I went to Harvard. I came back and I worked for Jerry Walker at his Teen Walker program. I was the program coordinator. So I was in charge of 250 kids for 2 sites, and I began to create my program from Teen Walker. So I would have a group of young men, and I would take them out of recreation. So like instead of going to play basketball, I'd be like, hey, you coming with me? So they'd stomp in the first couple of sessions like, oh, well, I gotta go, right? And then next thing you know, I knew that things were working when they didn't even ask about recreation. Right, they wanted to be with me, right? So I would have food, I would do different activities. It would be a lot of fun, right? But I catered it to what they needed, character and leadership development, particularly, right? And then after 2 years, I went to South Africa, right? During the summer of 2014. They did these life orientation circles there, particularly. I taught there for a month in South Africa. So this whole time, I'm taking stuff from teaching, putting in my toolbox, taking stuff from Teen Walker, putting in my toolbox, South Africa, putting in my toolbox, and then I was ready to step out on my own with Kismet of Kings in 2000. Well, started 2013, but when I went in the summer of 2014, I was able to like reinvent myself. You know what I mean? And the work that we do as an organization. And we focus a lot on developing the leadership abilities of young men, character development, and it's really a constructivist approach to development. What do I mean by that, right? So when we think about development, it's like, okay, sit in the classroom and we're gonna tell you what you need to do. Right? But my approach is slightly different, that we tell them what to do, but then we give them an opportunity to show us that they learned it. Right? So we put them in community service situations. We put them in Fortune 500, well, not Fortune 500, but like big company situations, right? We put them in situations where they meet with local community leaders and business leaders, right? And see what type of questions they ask. How do they sit, right? How do they engage, right? Do they look them in the eye, shake their hand, right? So just being intentional about our approach when we deal with young folks in the community, particularly young men.
That's cool, man, because it's so needed.
Yes.
It's so needed. Now, during that whole process, man, and you're doing this work, Did you see any Louis Spears in any of those kids?
I saw Louis Spears in all of them, and perhaps that's why I was so adamant about like getting to the other side, right? Because even as a teacher, I learned that when we did the socio-emotional piece with the character and leadership development, they started like getting better grades. They started connect. They felt like they belonged. They felt like they had advocates in the space, right? And so I knew that the work that we did in the after-school setting was so pertinent for how they show up in everyday lives, in their everyday lives. So yeah, I saw a bunch of Louis Spears, but the other thing is, I realized that that they need that type of incentive in order to like make positive decisions for their lives.
Right. And you know, I'm a firm believer. You know, as an athlete, you know, my dad was my coach in Little League baseball, and what he always said was, "How you practice is how you play." And that resonated with me, and I share that with a lot of kids that I come across, and that's very, very important. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we might not even take practice that serious,
right?
Because we know it's practice,
right?
But the way you practice is the way you play.
Yeah.
Right.
The motto of Kismet of Kings is how you do anything is how you do everything. Right. And so when I say how you do anything, they'll finish it off is the way they finish it off is how you do everything. And so it's very similar in terms of right. And so the more you do it in practice when you don't necessarily have to do it, right? Is the better is you'll do it better when you have to do it, right? And so absolutely, I agree with that motto.
You taught in Africa, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Wow.
That's you didn't learn that? You ain't know that?
I knew that. I knew that.
Okay.
You know, I just didn't want to interrupt you. You know, that's why I'm coming back to it.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes, sir. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
You making me feel like you don't really believe me, though. Look at that. Look at that, Lou.
You really do have that on there.
Come on, Lou. Come on, Lou. This ain't no game.
Right. All right.
But yeah, man, that's huge, bro.
Yes, sir.
And talk about that.
So there was a program called Teach with Africa,
Okay.
and I learned about it, but I learned about it too late, right? And then the next year, it came out, and I'm like, yo, I need to apply. I've always wanted to go to Africa. I'm like, I don't know what I could teach them, right? Like I thought it was going to be, I thought it was going to be like very traditional, like where when I got off the plane, right? I thought that it was going to be like a Coming to America movie or something like that. Right. I thought it was just going to be dashikis everywhere, right? Like traditional African music, you know, stuff like that. And when I got off the plane, it was like people wore regular clothes, and the music in the intercom was Jason Derulo's song or whatever. And I'm like, am I still in America here? You know what I mean? Yeah. But it was called Teach with Africa. 3 of us from the West Coast and 3 of us from the East Coast got together, and we met in South Africa. Nice. There was they paid for most of it. We had to pay money for traveling the plane, but the schedule that they had us on, man, it was beautiful, bro. Like we went to the Apartheid Museum. We went to Soweto. We went to, I taught in Deep Sloot in South Africa, Johannesburg. And then a group of us went to Durban. Nice. And we all had the same desire. We taught teachers how to teach in South Africa. Right? And I also was like a pseudo principal. I worked closely with the principal that summer. And we came up with programs and systems to really govern the school in a positive way. But I got so much from that experience, man. And so much, I before I present, I typically don't eat or drink anything, right? Wow. Because I get nervous, right? Okay. And so I'm like, I don't want to, let my nerves, be all out of whack, right? And so once I finished presenting, I did a co-teaching model, whatever, and then I went to eat and I packed my plate like it was like this high, no lie, no exaggeration. And a woman came to me and she goes, "Don't block your blessings, man." And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, that's gluttony, right?
Wow.
And I didn't even like think about it, right? And I knew I probably wouldn't have eaten it all, right? But my eyes were bigger than my stomach, right? And so from that moment, right, I knew that I needed to be conscientious of like the space that I take up in the world, right? Or how do I show up in front of people, and that like this capitalistic idea may not always be like the best at every turn. You know what I mean? Like I was able to understand culture from different perspectives.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
You know, this is Live, Learn, and Grow podcast, right?
Yes, sir.
You are sharing it, brother. You are sharing it, man.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
you know,
sir.
you're living out these experiences. You're learning from them, and you're growing from them. You know, and I appreciate you just even sharing all of that information with me, because at the same time, I'm living, I'm learning, and I'm growing too.
Absolutely.
And it's all
man.
from you right now.
Oh man, appreciate
You know what
that,
I mean?
man.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, brother. You know, and currently you're administrator, Hudson County, right?
Yeah.
Youth Services.
Yes, sir.
What's that like, bro?
It's a position of a lifetime, man.
Okay.
As an educator, in high school, out of high school, Dickinson High School, I taught there for about 5 years as a CIT, crisis intervention teacher. And some of our kids would come back to school on a bracelet, right? And I had no clue of of what they went through on the other side, right? I just knew that they showed up in a bracelet, they weren't going to class, and they were causing havoc in my school, right? And I would be very punitive in how I dealt with them at times, right? Suspensions and things like that, even though I changed up after a while. But in the beginning, I was very punitive, right? And so on this side of the spectrum, I'm able to see like why decisions are made around bracelets, or why youth would get a record at such an early age, right? And how can we help them? How can we do preventative things to really support them in their life, in their lifestyle, like station house adjustments and things that will like deter them from going into the justice system. So this is a position of a lifetime, because I feel like I'm getting them at a time where it could be very pivotal to like, you know, their adulthood, right? And so like catching them, trying to figure out the best course of actions, working with, you know, some of the dopest providers in our county is really delightful.
Right.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, you know, he's saying bracelet, but he means the GPS.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh yeah.
GPS
Ankle
system,
bracelets.
for those that might not know.
Oh
you know,
yeah.
But
And
just wanted
which is a deterrent from going into the detention facilities. It's to help folks, young people, stay with their families while they go through these like tumultuous times.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, man. You know, for me to be in that line of work also. You know, dealing with these youth out here, and like you know, everything that's going on. That's all the senseless violence that's plaguing our communities and all of that kind of stuff, man. And you know, every day you're putting in this work with these youth, you know, to try to keep them on the right track and stuff like that. It's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking. And I was sharing this with one of your colleagues, Robin. And
I love her.
yes. And it's just so, you put in this work every single day, right? You're trying to keep this youth on the right track. And it doesn't even have to be your youth that you're working with. It could just be a youth, because they're all our kids at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's just crazy, man. Like, where have we come to see so much?
It comes from the neglect, right? Folks are neglecting that sector of, you know, of human existence, right? And so with intention, right, with money, and with vision, we can definitely affect positive change in youth lives, right? But when organizations and systems are left without all those three things, our kids don't have the resources that they need to thrive, man.
Right.
And it really is sad to watch it happen the way that it's happening.
Yeah.
I cringe. It's not cringe. Like it's legit PTSD whenever I hear another kid getting murdered in the streets, right? Because some of it we can really, some of it doesn't have to happen. Right. And so when I look at a program like the ERC program in Essex County, where it's an evening reporting center, and youths from ages 13 to 19 are, in a center from 3 to 9, right? And they go on field trips. They get soft skills like cooking and, technical skills like, building and things like that.
Right.
We have nothing like that in Jersey City or Hudson County, right? So what are they doing there that we can, replicate, right? Take what they're doing that fits Jersey City or Hudson County and leave the rest, right? But really come up with a program and systems that could really support our youths in a way that's transformative.
What about, like you just said, I remember when I was in school, we had home economics and shop class.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. I remember building a towel holder, and bringing it home to my mom in the shop class. You know what I mean? That was huge for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And any kid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you probably didn't have money to purchase something for your mom or your dad or whatever.
Right.
So you made it.
Yep.
And it felt a lot better because it really came from you.
Your heart. That's right.
Right. Yeah. You're an author, brother.
Yes, sir.
Right.
One of my kids asked if I wanted to become Dr. Spears. I was like, we have a Dr. Spears already. We don't need another one in the house, right? Essentially, you'll go to school, right? You'll take some courses. I've done that, right? You'll write a dissertation. I wrote a book, and I'm like, I could consider myself a doctor at this point.
Yeah. For those that don't know, man, what's the name of that? What's the name of that book?
You're the answer to the problem from the hood to Harvard and back again.
And back again.
And back again. That's the part, right?
And
going
back
back into your community that you were born and raised to really make a difference, right? Get involved, develop, because ultimately when you think about any type of thing, any type of broken system or anything like that, is typically the person or the thing from within that's going to be able to fix it, right? It's very seldom that we get outside people to come into our spaces to really affect change the way that needs to happen, only because, right, they don't really know the nuances of a system, right? But when you're born and raised in it, right, is more than likely that you would be able to understand the nuances of the community, go back there to really create systems that could really benefit folks.
How much of, the content of your book comes from your experiences, or is it all of it?
Probably 99%. No.
Right.
And so the reason, the desire to write the book came from a lot of my young men were making bonehead decisions outside of me, right? And so I'm like, man, come on, man, you knew better than that. And they were like, what do you know? You grow up in a perfect situation. I'm like, I thought I told you guys what my situation was, right? So they saw the polished, the Harvard, that type of guy, and they didn't understand what I had to go through to get there. And I started telling them stories, and I held those stories to create the book that you have right now, right? And essentially, this is to help them navigate life, to use this as a roadmap for whenever they are trying to, make decisions in life. Whenever they feel they can't make it, or they feel like there's a fork in the road, I give them tips on how to make decisions that will benefit them. I even have the essay for Harvard that I submitted in the book, so that they'll know what that was like.
Right. It's funny that you say what you just said. We always highlight the graduations, right? But we never highlight the work all year long. You know what I mean? And that's what people don't really understand. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't get that. They don't grasp that part of the work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they just want to glorify the celebration of the graduation, the actual book coming out, and you seeing the visual of the book or the podcast. You know what I mean? Not knowing the work that was put into for us to even be here.
That's absolutely.
You know what I mean?
First I had to get over myself, right? I'm like, yo, what do I have to say that anybody would want to hear? Right. And then I had to do a lot of searching, soul searching. And in that, why did I not have a relationship with my dad, right? So I was in counseling at the same time, and so I was fleshing it out. And as I'm leaving my counseling sessions, I would go home and like write it out, right, and like try to make sense of it all. And so it took me 2 years to write it. Right, so people saw like my book is out, but it took me a minute to like get it together, because part of that was me understanding like my walk as an individual, right, and then being able to give voice to it in a way that will tell a story that will resonate with folks, right? So yeah, it took me a minute to do it.
That disconnection between you and your dad, for however long that was, I'm not really sure. How did that affect your parenting with your sons?
Oh man, I was talking about this to Ms. Brown one time. We went to NJCU because once my book came out, I went on a book tour, right? Okay. And so we were at NJCU. They bought a bunch of books, all that good stuff, and they asked about that. And in the beginning, man, I was overly committed to it, right? To the point where I felt like I was overcompensating for what I didn't have, right? So it kind of like drove me like, not sick, but like, you know, I was neurotic about it, man. I'm like, I don't want him around these people. I don't want him eating this. I want him in bed at a certain time. I want him wearing this. I need, like, he had eczema. I need this type of cream on him, right? I will go to every doctor's appointment. I was neurotic with it, man. And not that I'm not neurotic now. I think I've calmed down a lot. But I'm very, it's so important to me, right? Like, my dad didn't know like my shoe size or what was my favorite dessert or whatever. So I could tell you, Bo, he wears a size 5 right now. He was just a 4 a couple of weeks ago. Now he's a 5, right? And at AJ, he's in 4T. He can't really fit it all that well, but he's growing into it, right? I know that like Bo loves Cheerios, right? And that AJ loves watching this movie called The Mitchells versus the Machines on Netflix. Okay. He'll watch that 100 times, right? But like it's so important to me to like it was so important to me to understand them as individuals, and then my kids, right? And then because I needed them to feel value, because I never felt value by my dad. I felt like I showed up in the world less courageous, right? I felt like I was more less confident, right? Okay. And so I'm very intentional about building their confidence and letting them know, like, you know, it's a little machismo, like, yo, you could do anything, you're a man, you're a Spears man, right? And I'm telling them that, but it's to really let them know that, like, you know, there's nothing that you can't do in this world. One, because you're a descendant of me, right? Two, I'm gonna walk you through this thing called life until I can't anymore, right? And then 3, like, anything that you speak, you can make it come to fruition. Yes. Anything you think, anything you feel, anything, right? All of that, you could manifest it.
Shortly, like, I guess later, after you made the connection with your dad passed away.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Peace be upon him.
Thank you.
What was that? How was that for you?
Oh man, it felt very. It felt like a dream deferred, right? Like a dream cut, interrupted, not deferred, but like just interrupted, because I felt like a little boy again, right? Like getting to know him or whatever. I hate sports, but he was a Miami Dolphin fan, right? Okay. Miami Dolphins fan or whatever. Right. And I would just watch it while we'd be on the phone on Sundays, right? And so that was a great experience for me, right? Like I got to know like what was his favorite thing to do, right? Like my mom is a firecracker, right? My mom would like go in on you. She has so much love though. She takes care of her people, but like you're gonna know that you had an experience with my mom if you get on her bad side. Or maybe if on her good side too. You're just gonna know you had an experience with her, right? But my dad is more like me, right? My dad, he loves people. He would do like a cookout and invite like everybody in the projects to his house, right? Like people who were like disposable by society, like, you know, they'll come, you know, smelling a little weird or like clothes ripped or whatever.
Right.
He would always feed them, right? And they would sit down and he would talk to them like regular people. And I get that from my dad.
Why is that with the moms though? Because I just was sharing that same story on Frank's show. Matter of fact, we were talking about that. And what we were talking about, I had mentioned that my mom was the disciplinarian of the house. You know what I mean? Like my dad would say what he had to say, but I was always afraid if it got back to my mom.
Got you. She's such a sweetheart, man.
Right. The best nurturers.
That's right.
Right.
That's
right.
right. That's right. That's right.
But yeah. Your wife's a pediatrician.
Yes, sir.
Right. Looking to open up.
Yes, sir.
In
Yes,
Jersey
sir.
City?
Jersey City.
Yeah.
Dock spot.
Yeah.
On Fulton and Ocean.
Fulton and Ocean.
Yeah.
How?
You know,
Let me ask you this, Lou. You're married, man. That's like the best thing ever.
yeah.
You know, I look at that. How important is that to have that rib or that support system? I'll say that.
So let me just say this for me, right?
Right.
It was very important that I develop a family, right? Because I knew that at some point I would be a great dad or whatever, but I couldn't imagine like bypassing the part with the mother first, right? So much that I saw in my family unit was, you know, my stepdad not necessarily like respecting my mom, right? And I remember and not like they had like physical fights where he was abusive when I was younger, but like now, like older, like they're really cool and all that good stuff. And they are in a very good place now, right? But growing up, I just remember not liking him, not because of anything that he did to me per se, but because how he treated my mom, right? And so that was very important that I got the woman thing right? So I went to counseling. I started counseling, and legit counseling was the thing that held me together for as long as I've been together, right? Because I needed that accountability. So right before I was about to get married, I thought that I was gonna bring some of those those machismo ways into the household, right? And so I wanted to make sure that it was I worked on myself, right? That I wasn't insecure about my wife making more money than me, or you know, because my mom made more money than my stepdad, and she was like running the house, right? Telling him what he's doing, what he's not gonna do, right? And I just knew that I wanted to be okay with still being the man of the house, right? But also understand that the possibility of her making more money than me was real, right? We met in college. She always knew that she wanted to be a pediatrician.
In the
right?
choir, right?
In the Ruckus choir.
College
Yeah.
choir, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is for me, man. Like just because I live this way, I don't put this on other people, right? Like the man of the house and things like that. And in general, right now, my wife, we are not like traditional folks when it comes to this marriage thing. Like I'll go home tonight and the garbage will be outside. Right, because she'll just take the garbage out, right?
Yes.
But then it's like I'm concerned about like how the kids are eating, and I'm waking up in the morning with them on Saturday morning because she doesn't wake up that early, right? And like I'm getting them ready for the day. So it's like we don't have traditional roles, but that was the best decision that I've ever made in my life, was to marry this woman. Right.
That's huge, man. That's huge. That's huge.
The thing is that I use my therapist as my coach in many ways, right? So in life in general, right, I use the analogy of boxing in the ring, right? You get beat up and then you go in a corner and your coach is like patching you up, right? And so there were things that I had issues with early on when we got married, right? And I wanted to be outside all the time. I wanted to be that social butterfly always doing stuff. And she's like, dude, you got responsibilities here. here, right? You're somebody's husband, right? And so we had to reconcile that. We had to really come to a medium when it comes to that, right? Maybe I'm not going out every night of the week, but I could go out 3 nights a week, right? And like have a really good time, right? Like she ain't gonna call me, she ain't gonna text me, right? And then but I also couldn't bring that nonsense home either, right?
Right,
I couldn't be
definitely.
having other chicks calling, right? Like I had to be very transparent and all that. So
Yes,
right now,
yes.
I walk into a space and she's like, I could be talking to a group of women and she's like, oh, hi, y'all, how y'all doing? And she'll go somewhere else and chill, right? Because she just understands like the dynamic. But I had to do I had to do my part too, right? I have to be very mature, right? I have to be very adult about it. And she's my best friend, right? I could talk to her about anything, any feelings that I have, in anything. And she's gonna be my friend first, and then my wife second. It's enjoyable, man.
I can imagine, man. You don't have to do much because you have a nanny, right? Don't you have a nanny? I don't want to put your business out there, you know. But hey, man.
So we needed help, right?
Okay.
And her friends are telling her, just get what you need, right? Like my wife doesn't like extra people in the house, like if people coming over. Like I have a family where if you're down the street and you just call me, like I'm outside, I'm like, all right, come on in. My wife, you gotta like call a week in advance. You gotta make sure that my house could be junky, like with me, and they come in, I'm like, excuse the mess, but what's up? Have a good time. My wife needs to make sure it looks a certain way, right. So we needed a nanny because like she's out and about doing a bunch of things, and I'm out and about doing a bunch of things, and we needed our boys to stay home and live as though we are there, right? Just as much normalcy as possible, knowing that we have all these crazy like situations going on, right? The other thing though is we have a huge support system with the family.
Right.
Like legit, I could drop the kids off at anybody's house. My cousin, shout out to Aunt Diane, shout out to my cousin Patty, shout out to my sister Kamisha. They are really, truly, and honestly my lifelines, right? However, we wanted our boys to be in the house and be like, have a normalcy, right? Like we have a little pool in the backyard, so we wanted them to be able to go to the pool and play whatever while we weren't there, So it was just very important that we created the systems.
Right. Now, I guess it's pretty common. It might be common today, that you have a pool. Me coming up on Randolph Avenue, you've been there. And, we had a pool also.
You definitely did.
And
that's where I got the idea from.
Is that right?
No, I have a small pool, like a blow.
Right.
A blow-up pool, you know what I mean? You had a real deal.
Yeah. But it's so funny because the perception of us was we had money.
Yeah, I still think y'all have money. And the peach tree in the backyard.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you guys know, Lou's very observant. And that's a good thing. But yeah, just that perception, man. And like you said, you still think that, and which is cool. And it kind of wears on me at times because people don't really know. You know what I mean? Not to say that I'm broke or anything like that. It's just what people
It's a lot of
think.
hard work that you have to put in, right?
Exactly. You know what I mean?
I think for me, just watching you guys, I knew that families could exist the way that you guys existed or exist still, right? And it's like that was so important for me to see, right? Growing up in the projects, you don't necessarily see like, and there were amazing families in the projects, right? Because money doesn't make families,
That's
right?
right.
I'm very clear about that. However, when I saw your family, I'm like, yo, like, it could be done, right? And you guys being exposed to you, I was able to understand that like this exists, and I just have to work hard to attain it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, family is everything, man.
Oh,
family
yeah.
is everything. If you guys don't know, man, family is definitely everything.
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 Man. Yes, sir.
You're running for mayor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What sparked that?
So I was talking to someone earlier today, as a matter of fact, and oftentimes we talk a lot about what's wrong in our communities. We talk about things that people need to do in order to make it better. but we seldom put our, our hat in the ring, if you will, right? And so it was about time that I put my money where my mouth was. Right, and it's like I have all these ideas. I have ways in my mind, right, and things that I've implemented to help systems run well, and I feel like I could bring those same systems into the government and to help government run better. And I knew that this was the time to do it, right, and so knowing that the current mayor was going unopposed, man, and given all of the issues that I've heard over and over again, issues that I've experienced in our city, and the neglect that we feel, I thought it would be very irresponsible of me, someone who has the knowledge, someone who has the background, someone who has the character to do the work. I thought it would be very irresponsible of me not to put my hat in.
Nice. I have an issue with that, putting your hat in the ring, with that saying.
I got you.
And I just feel like, when people say, I'm going to just put my hat in the ring, not saying that you say that, but it's just like, I'm going to try this.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Instead of just outright, I'm running for mayor.
So I didn't take it that way. I could see how you say that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it that way.
I know.
It really,
right.
but I can understand why you would say that. And at the end of the day, right? I'm not. I don't want to say this, but I'm not a politician. But when I put my hat in the ring, right? that all changed at that
Right,
1 minute,
right,
at that very moment, right? And so what I would say is that I don't necessarily have an extensive career in government, in city government per se, right? But so when I say I put my hat in the ring, because it seems like that would be something really outlandish based on everything that I've done. But really, based on everything that I've done, it qualifies me for this position right now.
Yes,
and
it
this,
does.
in this very moment.
Yes. The demographics of Jersey City don't all suffer from gun violence.
Right.
What do you bring to those who don't?
So, in any ecosystem, safety is primary. Right. And so it's not necessarily gun violence, right, in every part of the city, but a threat to safety anywhere is a threat to safety everywhere, right? And so when we see that needs to always be the chief, point of any leader to ensure safety, because if people feel unsafe, people feel like they don't belong, they don't want to stay, right? They don't. That's a shameless plug. That's my platform.
Right.
They don't want to stay. And so I'm clear though that there are other types of violence, other types of I've spoken to people in the Heights, right, where they're saying like, listen, this flood thing is becoming annoying for us, right? That's one concern. But in terms of violence or safety, there's their packages are being stolen, right? Or I've heard of robberies in the Heights. But the problem is, right, only particular parts of our communities are being stigmatized with violence, and by violence, and other parts of our cities, other parts of our city, it's not necessarily highlighted, right? So we're kind of like bypassing those victims in those areas, right? And we're heightening the experiences of people in Ward F and Ward A, right? And some people in Ward F and Ward A have never experienced any type of gun violence, any type of violence, right? And then you have people in Ward E who probably experience some type of, has some type of safety issue, but because it's not stigmatized in that area. So what am I saying? That's a universal issue in our city, and it's not necessarily like gun violence, but it's definitely safety that we need to be concerned about, and making sure that systems are created so that we all feel safe in our community.
You can't please everybody as the mayor, as we all know, right? How do you handle situations like that? You have your agenda set out, all right? It's not going to agree with everybody. People are down your throat. Oh, get that mayor. Say you're not doing what the people want, and you're not going to be able to please everybody. You already know that. So those whom you can't please, How do you handle that? And this is a skin thing.
What do you mean by
Tough
skin?
skin. Having tough skin.
So the reality here, right, is in any system, you're never going to get 100%, right?
Right.
And I'm very clear of that. But what I would love to do, and I do this all the time, is get the buy-in of the folks in general, right? So let's say, for instance, with the goal of mine is to have safety committees in each ward, right? Because each ward has its own situations going on, right?
Right.
And so these committees will be made up of police officers, right? Clergy, principals, doctors, lawyers, security guards, right? Crossing guards, like everybody anybody who wants to be a part of it, right? And they're going to serve as credible messengers to the rest of the community, right? And so the goal here is to bring as many folks into the conversation as possible so that we could move the city forward, right? I don't think that progress is necessary progress when we are intentional about leaving a large group of folks out of the conversation, out of the process, right? So the goal here is to not ostracize folks because they have a different opinion, right? Because there's a difference of opinion, but to welcome them into the conversation, right? And figure out how we could get to a reconciled place, right? And although I know that it sounds like a utopian model, right? I know that it sounds very pie in the sky, but I've experienced systems where the more voices you give, more people you give voice to, right, where they're amplified and they're having conversations, the better they feel like they could voice their opinions and get their concern and have their concerns met.
As an educator, right? As an educator first, as a man first, for most of the part. But as an educator, what do you see needs change in the educational system as a mayor, and what would you do as the mayor? Yeah,
so the first thing with education, man, is we need fully funded schools.
Okay.
Fully funded schools, right? It's nerve-wracking for me. To every year we have to revisit, and have a budget conversation, right?
Yes.
And it's like, come on, right? What are we doing? What systems are in place so that these things are seamless, right? But once we pass that, there's an equity issue in the education system, right? Like, I worked at PS15 for a year. The amount of trauma that those youths experience in that school, in that community, is horrific, right? And, I just want to make sure that more resources are being given to the school like that. Downtown, their schools are busting out of the seams, right? So how are we supporting, I know that there's about to be a new school down there as well, but how are we supporting folks all around the community to ensure that kids are being educated effectively? I know that the state is doing something, I heard through the grapevine, about asking retired or former teachers to come back to support, right? Because after this, once this pandemic is over, the gap is huge. I used to be a special education teacher, right. So the services that we needed to provide for the youth in the classroom, and the classrooms were paramount to their growth and their development, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, they haven't been able to get as much resources and as much support, right? And so we're going to have to be very intentional about beefing up the resources, particularly for our special education kids, so that we could close the gap. The other thing is advisories, right? When we talk about what our youths are going to need, this is a very traumatic experience for all of us, right? So how are we going to use our schools as the epicenter for optimal growth, right? So things like advisories in schools are going to be important and paramount to development for the development of the youth.
What do you say about the tale of two cities here in Jersey City? When people say, the South Side is Jersey City, but downtown is a different part of Jersey City. Like it's separate. How do you feel about that?
We're all one, man. And,
Right.
I cringe when folks say that. When I was away, and I was on a boat ride somewhere, like out of the country. I don't even know where. Probably Jamaica or something like that. We did a boat ride, and I met someone, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm from downtown Jersey City." I'm like, "Jersey City? Like, there's no such thing as downtown Jersey City, right?" And so, the goal here is really. I don't want to say close the gap, because it's really being intentional with providing services that each particular sector of our city needs, right? So each ward we need to tailor to make sure that the resources are given to in the spaces that they need to be given, right? Like. Yeah, I hate the idea of the Tale of Two Cities because it's evident, right? Yeah. But I don't think it's a tale of two cities. I think it's multiple tales, right? And each portion, each section has its own problems or concerns, right? That we should be very adamant about fixing.
Right. What changes do you see happening? When you're elected?
Oh man, so many, right? So in terms of, one thing is the community policing model. I've heard of models in Camden, models in Newark, and Patterson, if I'm not mistaken, where community policing is done with Fidelity. I'm sorry, not Patterson, Plainfield.
Okay.
And trying to implement some of those same systems in this city, and so that we could change the relationship between the residents and the police officers. What I've learned, man, is that police officers are not waking up like, yo, how can I, hurt folks today, right? Like they're not saying they're like, listen, I want to do my best for today so I could get back home to my family, right? And the young people, right? They're not like, yo, I want to have a horrible dealing with, a police officer today, right? It's like, yo, listen, I want to go and do my own thing and make it home to my families, right? To my family. And so how do I as mayor, right, make sure that both sectors who are traditionally at odds, that they both go home to their family at the end of the night unscathed, right? And so I see community policing being done a certain way. I see education being done a certain way. I see affordable housing and access and opportunities being done equitably, right? And so I see a community where we go back to looking out for one another, right? You remember being outside on Randolph, someone say, hey, go in the house, or don't do that. They told your parents got on you as well, right? I don't know. I asked a young man, like, who's your next door neighbor? He's like, I don't know. They just moved in, like, or I don't talk to them or whatever, right? And so it's like the community is there for a reason. This idea of one looking out for another, an iron sharpen iron, developing one another, enhancing each other's quality of life. That's what it's about, and that's what I want to go back to. I want the community to feel and look like a community again.
And it's so needed, man. It's so needed. Every day I come outside, man, and just something small, like two things that really, really bother me, and it's littering.
It does me too, man.
Oh man, I mean, it's just the thing about it though, Lou. It's just so easy for us to just do it, and I'm not saying us as in black folks. I'm saying people
in general. Yeah.
It's just so easy to just litter. But I've seen, and what really pissed me off was I've seen people in the car with me litter on the street. We drive the town over to Bayonne, and we're walking on Broadway in Bayonne, and they have a empty can in their hand, and they'll hold it until they get to the garbage can and put it in the garbage can. Why can't that same mentality take place on MLK in Jersey City?
I mean, right. I don't like it either. And it takes us, right, holding each other accountable. One of my mentees, he threw something out of my car door. I wasn't driving. We were parked. and I told him to get out of the car, pick it up, and put it back into the car until we found a spot. It's going to take those types of conversations and those types of expectations to really like drive your point home, because that's one thing that grinds my gears, man.
Yeah.
Especially because we know global warming, you know, all that craziness. That could happen if we don't take care of our earth, right? And so like, do your part. Right, do your part. Keep it in your car until you find the garbage. Right, like that isn't hard to do. And if we all do our part, we will mitigate a lot of the litter by at least half. Right.
How do we, you know, coming up here in Jersey City, you're running for mayor. Chris is running for council at large. Frank is running for council. Ward F council person. You have Jermaine in there currently, and you know we're all brothers that came up in Jersey City, and we have somewhat of a relationship with everybody. How do we go about that moving forward? Just being respectful of each other, because I feel that's definitely what's needed. It's not, you know, everybody's running for something just for the betterment of the community and in Jersey City in its entirety. But at the same time, it's always that competitiveness that's going to always linger. You know what I mean? And how do we keep that positive and honest amongst each other as men and human beings?
It's not happening already?
I just see, you know, some people handle situations differently.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I know if you're running for mayor and I'm running for mayor, okay, we're friends. We were friends before we were running for mayor. At some point, not saying I would, but people will have animosity against you even after the election. If you win, you know, that's still going to exist. You know what I mean? How do we get past that? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're all brothers from the same community with one common goal, and that's to uplift the community and make Jersey City a better place to live.
Yeah, so I don't recall like a time where any of us have disrespected one another, or where I've never engaged in conversations where folks are, you know, disrespecting another person who I have a great deal of respect for, right? Because I just don't, I don't know. I don't allow it. I don't know. Like I'm not gonna engage in those types of discourses, right? Like it's very important that you have to be the change that you want to see. That's right. That's what Mahatma Gandhi said, right? People say President Obama, but I'm like, nah, he got that from somewhere, right? And shout out to both of them.
Yes.
And whatever. All right. Whatever. All right. And so, man, you know, at the end of the day, right? This is the process of going into, you know, politics and things like that, right? My goal as a politician right now is to be honest in this space, right? To be very factual, all right, and talk about the issues. I think, you know, it would be very small of me or anyone else to talk about the person. I think that because we all have our own issues, right? And so whatever I'm gonna dig up about you, you probably could do something just the same about me, right? And so what does that have to do with the work that we do for the people, right? And so I mean, for me, and I can't speak for anyone else, right? When I step into a space, I want to be very clear about my intentions, right? That is not to go against the man himself, or the woman herself, but really about the issues. And so therefore, I'm able to walk in any space and, you know, display respect and expect it in return, because I plan to walk in greatness, right? Because ultimately, speaking negatively about someone else, it says more about you than it does them, right? And so it's very imperative of me to really keep my eye on the prize, and the prize is the mayoral seat, and ensuring that the best policies will be implemented day one to ensure that all of our residents feel safe, that they have the training that they need, that is affordable, and that they know is theirs. That's the state platform, sir.
What a way to end the podcast. But before we do go, let me just ask you this one question. When was the last time you seen The Wiz?
Oh my gosh! Wait.
Diana Ross.
So, all right, I've never seen it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Okay.
Sorry, are you gonna take my black card?
I'm just gonna slice a half piece of it off. But I'm gonna stick to The Wiz right now.
Okay.
So that's your homework.
Okay,
From
all right.
me. Right? Go back and watch The Wiz.
All right.
And I say that to say because, you know, you're an educator and you deal with youth. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times our youth need to see The Wiz and find out exactly what it really is about. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We out here striving for something that's already inside of us.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
you just told me, so I don't need to watch it.
No,
That's
no,
the
no.
premise.
You have to watch it. You have to watch that. All right. So if you don't, then go watch Claudine.
All right. So listen, a lot of my friends at Dickinson, I work with this woman, Eileen Sanabria, and she's like, did you see this? Did you see that movie? I'm like, no, I didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, no. So she has a whole list, and I'm sure Claudine and
Right.
The Wiz is on there.
Okay.
Godfather, all of that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get myself together.
Okay.
At some point.
No problem. No problem. I know you are. You're doing a great job. But hey man, it's a pleasure having you, brother.
Thank you for having me,
I had
man.
a
I
good
appreciate
time,
that.
man. You know, this was great. And this is Live, Learn, and Grow, man.
Absolutely,
This is
sir.
Live, Learn, and Grow, man.
Absolutely.
So I feel this is exactly what we did today. You know?
Yes.
Tony Perkins.
Louis Spears.
Live, Learn, and Grow, man. Peace.
Peace.
Oh.